Welcome to the Alameda County Bar Association and the Love Thy Lawyer podcast. I'm Louis Goodman. Today, we welcome Spojmi Naziri to the podcast. Ms. Naziri is an experienced immigration attorney with a passion for helping immigrants navigate the often complex and intimidating United States immigration system. She's been inducted into the Alameda County Women's Hall of Fame and has been recognized by Congressman Eric Swalwell in the Congressional Record for her pro bono service to the Afghan community. Following the fall of Kabul to the Taliban, she traveled to 7 of 8 military bases on the East Coast to provide legal services to Afghan allies. Perhaps most impressive, she bore 3 children while in law school, and her husband was simultaneously in medical school. Spojmi Naziri, welcome to the Alameda County Bar Association and the Love Thy Lawyer podcast.
Good morning, Lucas. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here and join you this morning.
It's a pleasure to have you. Where are you speaking to us from right now?
So I'm in one of my offices in Pleasanton, California. How
long have you been in that location?
You know, I started at this location when I first opened my office in 2011. I went, solo, and I had virtual office here for a couple of years, and then eventually I built it up. So I have 3 offices in the same location.
Fantastic. How long have you been practicing law?
I've been licensed since 2006, but I've been doing immigration since 2011.
And where are you from originally?
I was born in Paktia, Afghanistan, and I came to the U.S. when I was around 5 or 6 years old.
And when you came to the United States, where did you and your family live?
When we migrated here as refugees, we were sponsored by a Catholic church in Orinda, and we ended up in Concord, California. So I've spent my whole life in the Bay Area. I grew up in Concord and then just kind of gravitated towards Pleasanton as I got older.
Did you go to high school in Concord?
I went to elementary, middle school, and high school in Concord.
What was that experience like, being from Afghanistan and then living in Concord, which is sort of quintessential America, quintessential California?
Growing up in a predominantly Caucasian community, I think it was tough, but it was also interesting because there were I remember coming in as a kindergartner, and I still remember my kindergarten teacher because I didn't speak English, and all of the students, the teacher was very kind, and she kind of told everyone that I didn't speak English. I thought it's such a wonderful experience. I still remember it. Everybody helping me, trying to teach me. And believe it or not, I still have friends from elementary school now. So as I got older, I think I was trying to find identity, and being in Concord and being one of the only few Muslims or Afghans, I think it empowered me. I was involved in student government, and I always made it to the cultural events to include other cultures, and we did cultural shows. And being in student leadership, I think I always made it a point to let people know where I was from, what faith I practiced. And it was a really good experience for me.
When you graduated from high school, where did you go to college?
After I graduated from high school, I went straight to UC Davis, out of Davis.
Did you enjoy Davis?
I did. I very much enjoyed it. I think it was an experience. It was a bit of a challenge. I had 2 older siblings, and then I have 2 younger siblings, and then I'm in the middle. Because my older siblings had gone to a community college and transferred to a college university, I had gone, because I'd done well, I'd gone straight to Davis. There was a pushback from my father, who didn't think that I should go to community. And so I was the rebel, I guess I would say, in my family. And I pushed back with my dad, and I said, "You can't stop me. I'm going." So my mom was supportive. And so I ended up going straight to Davis, and it was a really amazing experience. And full circle, my daughter is there now. So I tell her about the things that we do and stuff like that. And the great thing was I met my husband in college. So we got married in college. So yeah, it was a great experience overall.
When you graduated from Davis, you ultimately went to law school. Did you take some time off, or did you go straight through?
I took a gap year to study for the LSAT while my husband was studying for the MCAT. And then the following year after graduation, I went to law school.
Besides doing the studying, did you do anything else? Did you do any work or intern or anything like that?
At that time, no, I was studying for the LSAT, and then my husband ended up in med school far away. So I joined him for a couple months, and then I came back and started law school.
You've been pretty open about this, and I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about your early family situation, because I know there were some times when you and your family were separated, and I'm wondering if you could kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So when I was young, I lived in the village of Afghanistan, sort of the remote villages with my mom. And my father was in Kabul, which is the capital of Afghanistan. And my mother was the first wife, and my father had a second wife. And at the time when the Russians invaded Afghanistan, my father left with his wife and kids. And we were left in the village with my mother and uncles. And then a year or so later, we took the journey from Afghanistan to Pakistan by foot. We traveled, I believe it or not, I still remember the vivid memories of walking through the night because the Soviets were bombing during the daytime. We made it to Pakistan with a lot of other immediate relatives, uncles and aunts. When we were in Pakistan, my father requested my siblings and I to join him. But my mother was unable to join because she was, polygamy is not allowed in Germany or the US. So she made the tough decision of sending 3 of 5 kids to Germany to be with my father, and I was one of them. And then we spent a few years in Germany and then migrated over to the United States. One of my siblings joined us. So I lived with my stepmother and my father for a few years. The family life wasn't as great as we wanted to be. So there was a lot of, just a lot of issues there. So my brother at that age decided that we wanted to go live by ourselves. So my father rented a home for us. And so my older brother at that time was around 16. My sister was, I think, 15, and I was young. And my younger brother. So we sort of lived on our own in Concord, and my father would come check up on us.
Do you recall living in Germany at all? I mean, what was that like?
The best I can describe Germany, was just very hard not having my mom. And I think it was very cold and always gloomy. For me, when I think of Germany, it sounds silly, but it reminds me of Alfred Hitchcock movies, really dark and gloomy. So I didn't really enjoy Germany that much.
Well, welcome to sunny California, I guess, huh? Now, when you graduated from college, you said that you took a year off and then went to law school. Where'd you go to law school?
I went to law school at Golden Gate University in San Francisco.
What was that experience like, being in the big city?
Well, at that time, because my husband and I had gotten married during college, my mom lived in, by that time, as I got older, about 7 years after I had been separated with my mom, I remember being in many, many immigration offices in Oakland. So my mom was finally able to join us when I was a teenager, about 6, 7 years after we had been separated. So I lived with her during, my high school years. And then in college, I was in college, and I got married in college. So traditionally in the Afghan culture, you go live with your in-laws. So at that time, my husband went off to med school, and I lived in Union City, and I commuted to law school to San Francisco daily. I was a day student, but I commuted back and forth. So I didn't really live there, but I went to school there. And it was, I don't know if people can say they either loved or hate law school. It was always a struggle for me.
I'll bet it was. And I also imagine that your experience of law school, even at the time with your contemporaries at school, was just an experience that was obviously very different than the other people who you were in school with.
Yes, it was. And I was always struggling to manage everything. And it was just, I think I reflect back on it, and I don't know how it was done, because my daughter wants to go to law school now, and she's like, I don't know, Mom, I can't even keep up with my studies. How did you manage it? So I said, you just do it.
This is kind of a 2-part question. And one is, when did you first start really thinking about being a lawyer? When did it occur to you that law would be a good job, a good career, a good calling for you? And then at what point did you actually decide, okay, I'm going to really apply, and I'm going to send in the money and take the LSAT and go to law school?
So, sometimes in life experiences affect the decisions that you make. So for me, as odd as it sounds, I had never wanted to be anything but a lawyer. And I think the injustices of being separated from my mother and the unfairness, cruel it was, I think I always wanted to be a lawyer. I can't pivot a point in life to say, this is when it clicked. I couldn't imagine being anything outside than an attorney all my life. And I think, and then culturally in Afghan cultures or Middle Eastern cultures, usually, it's a doctor, engineer, those were the doctor engineers. Lawyers were not so much up there in that category, particularly for a female. My brother and sister are both physicians, and I was third in line, and my father kept saying, well, if you can't be a doctor, be a nurse. So medicine is not my thing. I can't stand hospitals. As a child, when I was in fourth grade, I was hit by a drunk driver and spent quite a bit of time in the hospital with a coma. So for me, a hospital is not something that I was interested. So despite not having role models, despite my father, downgrading it, I never imagined anything. Law was something that there was no other option. So I just went with the flow. But I didn't have any support system in terms of turning to people that I could say, well, how did you take the LSAT? What did you do? Or the things that I share with my daughter now who's going through it is significantly different than what I went through, or what many people of color of first generation go through.
When you graduated from law school, you didn't really go right into the practice of law because you had children. Is that correct?
So I graduated in 2003. When I graduated, my mother was diagnosed with stomach cancer. And then at that time, I had 3 children. At that time, I had 2 children, and my first year, my second year, and I was 8 months pregnant when I graduated in May. So my daughter was born in August after I graduated. And I'm grateful for the family support that I had, because without it, I wouldn't have been able to make it. I lived with my in-laws and my mother-in-laws and my sister-in-laws, everybody. They were young. They all helped out. It takes a village to raise a kid. It's a true saying. So I stayed home. My husband was doing his fellowship at UC Davis. So I ended up going and taking care of the kids for about 3 years. So I graduated in 2003 and got licensed in 2006.
After you got licensed, what sort of practice did you go into and where did you do that?
So when I had been doing his fellowship at UC Davis Medical Center, but we lived in Davis, full circle. I had gone to college there, and then I was there for about 3 years, and I really wanted to do some work. And before that, I was doing contract work for like real estate, family law. Nothing was really hitting the heart. I found it meaningless. Even I did asbestos litigation. So when I went back to Davis, I started volunteering at the UC Davis Immigration Legal Clinic. It was the first of its kind in the country where they actually represented detainees. So I would go with the professors from Davis, UC Berkeley, and other locations, and we would go to Marysville Detention Center, Richmond Detention Center, Martinez, and we would do actual case representations. And I did that for about 3 years pro bono, but I would represent the detainees in immigration court in San Francisco. So I would drive from Davis to Richmond and then take BART to San Francisco, and I represented detainees in court. And I was grateful to be able to do that because a colleague of my husband's wife lived in Davis and she was home. So she would help take care of the kids sometimes when I had to do that pro bono work. And that's where I fell in love with immigration even more than I had before.
I know you have a passion for helping out Afghan refugees and that you speak Pashto and Dari. When you were working with the immigrants in San Francisco, my notion of it is that most of them probably spoke Spanish. And I'm wondering how that worked out for you.
At that time, it was interesting. I had Spanish-speaking clients who spoke English. I didn't speak Spanish, so I was given the English-speaking clients to represent in court. And it was just a surreal experience because some of them, I recall one, he was going to be deported on that Monday. I worked around the clock and the professor said, Sposhme, this is a very tough case. This is not going to be possible. He may get deported. Well, I did everything and I worked through the weekend and I went early to court and we were able to stop the deportation. And then eventually I represented him. And I was able to get him back his resident card. So the professor was like very impressed because it was the first case I had done. And she said, usually it's very rare that happens. And that just built that love and that interest to be able to change lives. As attorneys, yes, we change lives no matter what practice area we're doing. For me, I hadn't been separated from my mom for so many years. Having been in immigration offices and wondering what were we doing here as young kids. And then having that experience, taking it back and paying it forward, I think was pivotal in the interest that I do in immigration law.
Can you tell us a little bit about the practice that you have now?
So interestingly, when I had the 3 years of experience at UC Davis, I really wanted to come back to the Bay Area. My husband had finished his fellowship. He'd had offers at Davis and other places, but I said, I need to go back to the Bay Area. And so when we came back to the Bay Area and we decided to live in Pleasanton, similar to Davis, the schoolings and everything. And to be honest, I had a hard time finding a job. I remember going to an interview and an attorney told me, because I had graduated in 2003 and I passed the bar in 2006. I was studying on and off. The first thing she said to me is, and it was interesting, and I don't know why she would say that. She said, I'm assuming you failed the bar quite a few times if you got licensed in 2006. And I looked at her and I said, can't say what I said here, but I looked at her and I said, well, you can shove your assumptions. I had a mother who died of cancer and I had 3 kids under 3. I was a bit focused on that. So then I just left. And I was having a hard time finding a job and I did not want my children to be in daycare. So my husband kept saying, well, you have 3 years of immigration experience. Most people don't have that. Why don't you open up a law office? Well, having gone through experience of even going to law school, having no role models, having no support, having nothing, I don't know anything about a law office that open. I just knew how to be a lawyer. So I took the plunge and I had a virtual office and I built it. And so I've had my law office. So I've never really worked for anyone other than UC Davis. And it was tough. It was, there were people that would be helpful. You would reach out to. Then nowadays, there's so much support system, particularly from the Alameda County Bar Associations, from San Francisco Bar, from the American Immigration Lawyers Association. They have schools on how to open up your law office. And so it was really tough. And my husband had just started working and we had 3 kids, and financially he's like, can you just do a little bit of money so we can just pay the bills? I said, okay, let me try. So when I started, so that's where I've been since 2011. I opened up my own office and just kind of built it from scratch.
You obviously have a lot of talent. There's lots of things that you could do. You've indicated that you've always kind of considered yourself a lawyer. What is it that you really like about practicing law, and what is it that keeps you as a lawyer?
In all the experiences of helping our clients, many of us, it drives us, right? It drives us. I think the most important thing any individual can have, whether you're a lawyer or not, is integrity, trust, and care. And particularly for immigrants who are very vulnerable, taken advantage of. I would say 60 to 70% of my clients are Hispanics. My staff speaks Spanish. I understand it. I just don't speak it as well. You see how much they've been abused, taken advantage of, given false hope. And to be able to have someone come in and trust you wholeheartedly to do that, for them to have spent 20, 30 years in the U.S., and you're helping them navigate the immigration system, and then to tell them you need to go abroad to your home country and come back. That's extreme trust and responsibility. And having been reunited with my own mother after all those years and lost my childhood, when I do these cases, I think about that. When the fall of Kabul in 2021 to the Taliban, I remember my clients, and I have a large Afghan clientele, but I have clients from all over the world. So Afghans sometimes attorneys are known for a particular group. I'm grateful to say I represent clients from all over the world. I don't have one large. I remember when Kabul fell, my client, because of the nighttime difference, clients were calling me at daytime, saying, no, how do we evacuate from the chaos at the airport? And then navigating that system. And then daytime, hundreds of people calling, how do we get out? Do we go to the North Gate? Do we go to the South Gate? Then the suicide bombings happened at the gates. And then I was just like, I cannot tell people which gates to go at. This is extreme. And I remember, living off of migraine medicine and Pepcid because I just couldn't function. Many of us immigration practitioners all over the country. And so with AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association, we started, a whole bunch of us started trying to figure out what we can do. And at that time, it was a really tough time for me personally because it was COVID. My husband is a pulmonologist, so he was really extremely, involved in the COVID, and I never really saw him. And my 2 of the 3 kids were going to go away to college at the same time because my son had spent the year before at home. And it was really hard to say, okay, I'm going to be an empty nester. How am I going to deal with this? And I thought, well, God has a way of making things work out. And I remember dropping my son off in Irvine, coming back the same night, dropping my daughter off at Davis the next day, and literally just jumping on a plane, going to the military bases. What drove me to that? I didn't have an end game. I didn't know what I was going to help or accomplish, but I knew that I spoke Pashto. I knew that I spoke Dari, and I knew that I was a competent immigration attorney. And so I went to the military bases once a week for a month on a pro bono basis. And we did, legal representations and talked to them. And there were thousands and thousands of allies on the different bases. And sometimes I came home really PTSD. I guess I would call it secondary PTSD because some of the bases were like, for example, in the middle of the New Mexico desert with huge, like circus-like tents with Afghans, and you're speaking to them and there's soldiers and there's children running around. They don't know I'm Afghan. As soon as I would speak, they would just come and gravitate. And you would think that these are your people. These are, the trauma that they went through just to get on a cargo plane to get to the U.S. and then what they were experiencing. I remember an elder gentleman, to keep it short, I remember an elder gentleman grabbing his lanky daughter by the arm and pushing her, and he starts speaking Pashto to me. And he says, what am I going to do with her? What am I going to do with her? And I said, well, uncle, what's going on? And he said, my wife, my children, everybody got separated at the airport and I only got her. Now their understanding was their family members were going to be on the next plane coming to join them. The reality is they're not going to see their families for a decade or so. And so I told him, please stop pulling her. Let me just help you. And he goes, what do you know, you American girl? And I told him I've been separated from my own mom. And so I know the feeling. It was surreal to go, and I reflect on those experiences that actually make me more compassionate when I see clients coming in. And I think to be the best of person, to be the best of human being is to do the right thing when no one's looking. And so that's really, I think I built my practice on integrity, on honesty and empathy, because I feel like God just brought me to, and not to get religious or anything, but I wasn't a product of connection that got me to America. I came here by chance. I had this opportunity to become a lawyer, and I just want to be able to give that back because I've been privileged so much to get so much in life.
You've mentioned starting your own practice, building your own practice, building your own book of business. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about some thoughts you have, maybe some advice you might have about building a business and what it's like to be in business as an attorney.
I think the best advice I can give to people is, and then I say that to my own children, is reach out to people, reach out to mentors. The worst thing that someone can do is say no. There are so many wonderful, amazing mentors. There's so many wonderful people that are willing to share, that are willing to give. And you may encounter some that may not be as giving as you would like them to be. And what I tell young people, I'm involved in a lot of civil rights organizations and Afghan organizations and board on a National Council on American Islamic Relations, which is civil rights work. And I have a lot of young attorneys reach out about wanting to open their practice, about wanting to get guidance. And I think the best thing that we can do is reach out, be motivated, not be discouraged. It is tough. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But I think just staying focused and reaching out for help. And now there's so much help available versus when we started our practice where we felt so isolated.
What mistakes do you think lawyers make?
I wouldn't necessarily say a mistake. One thing I've never understood, as busy as we all are, I think it's very, very important to be able to build a structure in your law office to return clients' calls. Now, I know that you can't call every time they call and you set a boundary, but a lot of times when I get people coming from other attorneys, they will say that I never hear from my attorney. I call and I ask. I think building a practice where you make it a system that you at least have some sort of a communication with the client, because if you're doing everything right and you're not communicating with a client, then they don't know the work that you are doing. And nowadays, people are easy to lash out on social media, on attorneys, on anybody. Not that that's a deterrence for me, but I just feel like at least update the clients to a certain degree. And I think a lot of attorneys just take on so much that they're not able to do that or have their staff do that. So that's what I would say.
I want to shift gears here a little bit and ask you how in your very, very busy career and very, very busy family life, how you've put those two things together.
I think as a mother, always a struggle to build work-life balance. I would be a hypocrite if I said that I did do that. I don't have boundaries in my work. I think I try to not check the emails in the evenings, but that's the only time I have to do that. What I pride myself on is the fact that not everyone has this luxury to do that. I pride myself on the fact that I had my own practice where I never put my children in daycare. I never put them in after school program. When they were younger, I was always juggling between clients and then taking them to their extracurricular activities, whether it's piano, karate, soccer, basketball, whatever it may be. Then also making sure that I cooked food for them daily, make sure they had food. I think it's important to reflect because at the end of it, you can never do it all. I would say I was half good mother, half good lawyer, half good wife because I never felt like I was good enough at any of it. I think it's really hard as women, particularly, I wouldn't say, I would just say as women with responsibilities for motherhood and home responsibilities. I am grateful for my husband who has always been supportive. And I think having that support is really, really important. And then, having good mentors and colleagues to lean on when you need assistance. I think building a cohesive environment is really important.
Are there any recreational activities that you or you and your family enjoy doing?
Kid, I grew up going camping at Lake Tahoe. So I've been to most campsites. So in the summertime, I love to go, if we can go camping. Right now, we try to take vacations with the kids as much as we can. We went to Turkey. I love to travel, but it's very limited with both my husband and the kids' schedules. I think just keeping it sane is just exercising every day. I take 1 hour to go to the gym, and no matter what time it is, I'm like, I have to do that. That keeps me sane. But other than that, just spending time with family as much as we can, especially as kids get older.
Let's say you and your husband came into some real money, let's say $3 or $4 billion. Is there anything that you would do differently in your life?
If I had that kind of money, to be honest with you, I would spend that money in two places. I would spend that money to feed all the children in Afghanistan and then what's going on in Palestine right now. Those are the two places I would spend every penny.
Let's say there was a magic wand. There was one thing in the world, the legal world or otherwise, that you could change. What would that be?
That would be all the misery that's going around the world right now, particularly with women in Afghanistan where they're not able to go to school. After sixth grade, they're just stuck literally in prison in their homes. And I would take the magic wand and make some sort of peace in the Middle East so that we don't have children and the horrific things that we are seeing going on right now. Not only there, but Congo and other parts of the world, the children and the suffering that they're going through and the innocent people.
We have a couple of other people on the call with us, and I'd like to bring them into the conversation. Jake Gonnan, I'm hoping you could unmute. And do you have a question or a comment for Spojmi?
Yes, I do. Spojmi, I'm super excited to be able to talk to you today. I am a brand new attorney and I've been following you, and I'm glad I was able to come on. And my question is, immigration, you mentioned that there are resources that you didn't have when you initially started. I was wondering what those resources are and if you could recommend or point new attorneys into a direction that are kind of in the position that you were when you first started and decided you wanted to start your own firm.
Thank you so much, Jake. Thank you for being here today. Are you thinking of immigration law or any general law practice?
I really want to do immigration law.
Okay, awesome. So the best thing would be is to join the AILA, the American Immigration Lawyers Association. They have a tremendous amount of tools for new lawyers. The membership is, I'm not sure what the membership is, but if you're able to afford the membership, I think that would be a wonderful source. They have mentors, they have classes and courses where you can join. I also am aware that I believe the Alameda County Bar Association has certain programs for new attorneys. It may not necessarily be immigration, but how to set up a practice, like, the phone system to, where do you get a print, like whatever it may be to actually physically set it up. I've had to, even now, just learning everything. But I think that the best source would be AILA for immigration.
Jake, let me just ask you, are you a member of the Alameda County Bar Association?
I sure am.
And Jake, sorry, if you ever need anything in immigration related, always, if you look me up, you can email me and then call me or email me. There's nothing more gratifying for me than to help a new person and it help and in setting up and questions you may have. I'm happy to mentor anybody who wants to do the practice of immigration law, whether it's the actual law itself or the practice setting up the office.
Wow, that's incredible. Thank you so much.
And I have a few more questions here, Spojmi, if I may. I'm wondering, is there somebody living or dead who you would like to meet?
I would say Malcolm X.
Why is that?
I think having read his book, the transition that he went from who he was to who he became was just extraordinary. I've read his biographies, regardless of him converting to Islam, just the transformation of a human being from who they were to who they ended up being is just very intriguing. I've had the honor of meeting a couple of his daughters, but he would be one.
Is there a book that you would recommend, or it could be a couple of books, that you might recommend to people to read? Just books that you liked. It doesn't need to be about the law. It doesn't need to be about immigration. It could be just anything that you think somebody might like to read who's listens to this podcast.
The most recent one I'm listening to is just very intriguing is the 100 Years War on Palestine and Israel, what's going on. I would say for anyone interested in listening, reading something is to, if whatever topic interests them is not to rely on social media, but more so go and read an actual book on that subject.
Jake, go ahead.
Can I ask another question, Louis?
Yes.
Okay, great. For Spojmi, prior to becoming an attorney, and I just got sworn in January of this year, but prior to that, I was a real estate agent and I did a lot of volunteer work, and I'm just big in volunteering. Now that I'm an attorney, I also try to volunteer my time and do citizenship classes and legal clinics to trying to help people. I've come to a crossroads now where I can't just keep giving things away for free and my time for free. And I understand I need to start valuing my position as an attorney more. So how do you get over it when do I charge people and how much do I charge them? Because I've been doing it just, out of the kindness of my heart for so long. Now I kind of have to try to get over that, and I'm kind of struggling with it. What did you do?
So when I first started my law practice, I was volunteering at pretty much any and every nonprofit organization, like Bay Area Legal Aid. I did the lawyers in the library for the Alameda County Bar Association. I did the International Institute of the Bay Area. They had opportunities to volunteer there. And that's how I slowly built clientele eventually. I'm sure, my colleagues here on the podcast can also attest to it, but there's nothing more important than having someone value your time. And even though I've been practicing since 2011, only in the last 3 years have I said consultation fees $100. There are attorneys who charge $150 to an immigration practice. In other areas, it's like $400, $600. But in immigration, what I say is it's $100 for the consultation. And if you retain me within 30 days, I will credit that back to your case. And I promise you that you will get the clients that you want. Those who say, well, I'm just going to go do it. Someone else who does it for free. That's fine. That's not the client that you want. Okay. So it took me 9-10 years to decide that. Now I have 100% people showing up for their appointments. And when they hire me, I credit that back to your case. And they value your time more. They value your information more when you charge them. So my advice going back, I think the mistake I made, Lewis was asking earlier, is I wish from day one I had said the consultation fee is $100 or $150, because that would have saved me so much headache, time, and resources. When you schedule 5 people and none of them show up, and now you've wasted your time. When you charge, they will show up for that appointment and you will keep them consistent.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Spojmi, if someone wants to contact you, another attorney with a referral on an immigration matter, a question about an immigration matter, or someone who listened to this podcast and wants to contact you to set up some kind of an appointment regarding immigration issues, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
So the best way would be just through the website, www.nasirilaw, NASIRILAW.com. And there's an intake form, and my phone number is on the website also there, so they can contact us. I have staff and we answer the calls. So, and if it's a colleague, they can just say it's a colleague and I'll return the call back.
And my guess is that if someone were to Google Spojmi Nasiri attorney, that your name and your website would probably come up fairly quickly.
Yes. Yeah. It comes up and they were able to contact me through that way also.
Spojmi, we've touched on a number of different topics. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss that we have not gotten to? Anything at all that you wanted to bring up?
So I would just say, it's for new attorneys. I think, like I mentioned before, it's very important to reach out and be able to get help. I think one of the things I wanted to share my own experience as a woman of color, it's always been challenging to navigate the different system, whether it's, the practice of law itself, whether it's opening an office or whether even being in court. There are some instances that can be really difficult. And I think just standing your ground and being able to be humbled by your experiences and take pride in that and doing the work, I think it's very important. The only other thing I would say is that, as attorneys, we're in a position to change lives, to make impactful. And I think that as busy as we are, it's very important to give back to the community in some ways, whatever way that may be. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to take a case, and in being able to say no when you are overloaded. I'm learning after all these years how to say no. I think the last 2 years really emotionally burned me out. So I've learned to put barriers to saying thank you, but no thank you. So when I get invited to go talk about these different events, I only committed to one. It's raising money for orphans in Afghanistan. And so learning how to know your well-being and put aside, because when you try to do too much, it just at the end burns you out to the point where you can't function. And I truly believe I reached that point in the last 6 months, and just trying to learn to appreciate myself and my boundaries, especially when we are so busy and we're doing so much.
Spojmi Nasiri, thank you so much for joining us today at the Alameda County Bar Association and the Love Thy Lawyer podcast. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much, Lewis, for having me. And thank you, Valerie. It's an honor to be here and share my stories. And I hope that it motivates others. And thank you, Jake, for being here. I'm always here to give wherever we can. I sincerely appreciate you having me today.
That's it for today's edition of Love Thy Lawyer in collaboration with the Alameda County Bar Association. Please visit the LoveThyLawyer.com website, where you can find links to all of our episodes. Also, please visit the Alameda County Bar Association website at acbanet.org, where you can find more information about our support of the legal profession, promoting excellence in the legal profession, and facilitating equal access to justice. Thanks to Joel Katz for music, Brian Matheson for technical support, Paul Roberts for social media, and Tracy Harvey. I'm Louis Goodman.
Gosh, you put me on a spot there.